Hello, traveler. Welcome to a quiet night in Edo. Set your worries on the windowsill and let the day exhale. The world outside your window goes soft and silent, and the blankets around you grow heavy with warmth. Sleep is almost here, so close you can taste its cool, dark stillness when the air tilts and everything shifts. The scent arrives first: damp riverstone, old paper, and the faintest whisper of ink. You open your eyes and you are no longer in your room. Instead, you are on a small wooden boat gliding down a canal as black as liquid ink. A soft gray mist shrouds the city in silence, and the only warmth comes from a single paper lantern hanging from the prow, its amber glow creating a small breathing room of light in the vast, quiet night. You feel the cool, smooth planks beneath your bare feet. Across from you sits an artist, your guide. Before him rests a low table holding an inkstone, a water dropper, and a scroll of fine paper partially unrolled. He looks at the empty space at the end of his work and lets out a sigh, not of weariness, but of fond acceptance. His voice is low and soft like silk brushing against old wood. The last page, he murmurs, his gaze still on the scroll. It seems it has left on its own. He pauses, picking up his brush, not to paint, but simply to hold it as he thinks. Perhaps it did not wish to be bound by the final brushstroke. He continues, a hint of a smile in his voice. He gestures with the brush toward the misty canal ahead, or perhaps it wishes to visit its brethren, the other spirits who live on these pages. They are my work, yes, but the stories belong to them. He sets the brush down and turns to you, a quiet welcome in his eyes. I am Toriyama Sekien, and tonight we are not hunters, you and I. We are listeners. Follow me. This water remembers everything, and if we are lucky, it will show us where the page now rests. He gestures for the boat to move forward, its prow cutting silently through the mist. Now he whispers his voice, barely disturbing the stillness. Close your eyes. Feel the boat drifting gentle and smooth like a cradle on the water's surface. Listen. This city has many things to whisper to us, and so you float through the misty heart of a sleeping city, guided by an artist named Sekien, who listens to forgotten things on a quiet search for a story that has yet to be written. This is sleep among titans. If your eyes remain open, you have arrived at the perfect hour. If they drift closed, wonderful, the water will carry you gently while you dream. Should this journey bring you peace, leave a whispered thought below, or light a lantern of subscription so the next story may find its way to you. The page will wait patient as ink on paper until you return. The boat continues its unhurried journey, a silent brushstroke against the dark liquid silk of the canal. The mist swirls around you, cool and clean, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine from a garden you cannot see. Each dip of the oar is a soft, rhythmic heartbeat, a steady percussion in the great quiet temple of the sleeping city. Sekien sits opposite you, his own breathing slow, and measured his eyes, scanning the shrouded riverbanks, not with searching, but with a patient, open curiosity. He is not looking for something. He is simply looking. It is a strange and wonderful thing he says, his voice a low murmur that seems to merge with the mist. A page of paper, so fragile, a gust of wind, a drop of rain, and it is undone. Yet it can carry a story that outlives the stone of castles. It can hold a soul. I believe our lost page is not truly lost. It is merely visiting, and it has left us a trail. He lifts his hand, not pointing, but gently guiding your gaze toward the shore. They're half hidden by weeping willows, whose branches trail like green hair in the water, stands a house. It is not just old, it is a structure that has surrendered to time. The roof sags in the middle, like the spine of an ancient, tired animal. The paper of its shōji screens is torn and hangs in tattered strips, fluttering like captured ghosts in the faint breeze. A wooden gate weathered to a silver gray hangs from a single corroded hinge, perpetually half open, a silent invitation or a forgotten farewell. It is a place where memories have been left to fade, where objects have had a century of quiet solitude to think. An artist must learn to see the beauty in decay. Sekien whispers more to himself than to you. A potter finds beauty in the crack of a raku bowl. A poet finds it in the falling of a blossom. I find it in houses like that, places where the human world has grown quiet enough for other worlds to speak. He gestures for the boat to drift closer to the bank, the hull scraping softly against trailing lily pads. The air here feels different, heavier with the weight of stillness. And then you hear it, tap. A single dry sound, sharp yet muted by the fog. It is the sound of a bare twig striking a wooden floor. Tap, tap. Sekien smiles a small, knowing smile that does not disturb the tranquility of his face. He brings a finger to his lips, a silent request for you to listen more deeply. From the shadows of the abandoned home's porch, a shape emerges hopping into a lonely patch of moonlight. It is an umbrella, an old, oiled paper umbrella, its color faded from a once vibrant crimson to the soft, dusky rose of a setting sun. Its bamboo ribs are delicate, and its handle has become a single spindly leg. At its top, a single large benevolent eye stares out at the world, and from its center a long playful tongue lolls out, tasting the misty air. It is the kasa obake. It hops once twice on its single leg, landing with that same sharp tap. Then it begins to dance. It is not a graceful performance. It is a clumsy, joyful, heartfelt jig. It spins, wobbling precariously, its paper skin rustling with a sound like autumn leaves. It bows to an audience of silent, watching stones. It leaps its one leg, kicking out a gesture of pure, unpracticed exuberance. After a century of service, Sekien murmurs, his eyes filled with a fond, analytical light. A tool can grow a soul. This one has spent 100 years shielding heads from the rain held tightly pointed down. Now it wants to feel the sky. It wants to leap. The kasa obak seems to hear him. It performs another spin, this one more ambitious than the last. It tilts. It whirls the world a blur of moonlight and mist in its single staring eye. But its enthusiasm outpaces its balance. It stumbles. As it falls, the crook of its handle hooks onto a small, low table on the porch, a table you hadn't noticed before, upon which rests a neat stack of Sekien's draft papers, left there on some previous visit. The umbrella's stumble is just enough. The top sheet of paper covered in failed poems and half-finished sketches lifts into the air. It hovers for a moment, a pale moth in the darkness, before catching a stray current of air. It drifts from the porch over the damp earth and settles onto the surface of the canal with a sigh so soft it is almost imperceptible. It floats for a second, a white island on the black water, before the ink begins to bleed and it slowly, gracefully sinks from sight. The kasa obake recovers its footing. It looks at the empty table, then at the water, and lets out a final apologetic tap before hopping back into the shadows of the house, its dance for the night now over. Sekien watches the ripples fade. He does not seem angry or even frustrated. He simply observes. Well, he says quietly, there goes a perfectly good verse about a melancholy frog. As you both gaze at the spot where the page disappeared, a new light begins to bloom nearby. It is a weak, flickering golden glow emanating from a tattered old lantern hanging from the eaves of the abandoned house. Its paper is ripped in several places, revealing the bamboo ribs beneath like a delicate skeleton. Its light pulses weakly like a fading heartbeat. Slowly the lantern detaches itself from its hook. It doesn't fall. It drifts. It floats through the air toward your boat, drawn by some unseen purpose. As it nears a tear in its paper skin, widens, splitting into a jagged, toothless mouth. From this mouth, a long, impossibly thin tongue, like a black ribbon of ink, unspools. This is the Chochin Obak. It floats directly over Sekien's unrolled scroll, which still rests on the table before him. The ink of his most recent drawing is still wet, gleaming in the creature's faint light. The lantern's tongue descends delicately and touches one of the wettest characters on the page. It is not a greedy lick, but a soft, curious caress like a connoisseur tasting a rare wine. It tastes the ink, the mixture of soot water and glue, and then retracts its tongue, its light, flickering with what seems to be thoughtful contemplation. It has left a smudge, a single dark smear across the elegant brushstroke. The Chochin Obake hovers for another moment, as if judging the quality of the ink, and then seemingly satisfied it drifts back toward the house, its light dimming until it is once again just a tattered, lifeless object hanging in the dark. Sekien leans forward, his eyes fixed on the smudge. You expect him to be annoyed at the imperfection, the disruption to his work, but instead, his focus is intense. He squints, tilting his head. The smudge, by blurring the top layer of ink, has made something underneath visible. A ghost of a character, one he had painted over an hour ago, now faintly reappears its form, suggested by the wet, smeared ink. It is a character he had forgotten a key to a puzzle he was trying to solve. He looks from the revealed character on his scroll to the dark water where his draft page now rests. He connects the two events in his mind, the page of failed ideas now gone, and the forgotten correct idea now returned. A slow smile spreads across his face. You see, he says, turning to you, his voice full of a quiet, profound discovery. Mischief doesn't just startle, it also draws the path to truth. One spirit hides my mistakes, the other reveals my forgotten wisdom. He picks up his brush again, dipping it in the ink, ready to work. He glances at the empty space on his palette, where his finest crimson ink used to be. This mobile umbrella friend is quite enthusiastic. He muses, a twinkle in his eye. I just hope it doesn't decide to fly away with my palette next time. Good crimson is hard to come by. The world settles back into its rhythm. The only sounds are the oar in the water and the distant hum of the sleeping city. The brief strange dance is over. Now Sekien whispers his voice, dropping, becoming part of the night itself. Try closing your eyes. Let the image of the spirits fade. Instead, listen. Hear the sound of thin paper falling into the water. Hear that gentle final sigh as it disappears. He pauses, letting you listen to the silence. Now relax your arm. Feel the tension in your shoulders, and your hands melt away. Let it go as if you have just released the handle of a heavy rain-soaked umbrella after a long walk. Feel the relief spread. There is nothing to hold on to, Nothing to do, just this boat, this water, and this quiet breathing night. The boat drifts away from the abandoned house, leaving the two mischievous spirits to their silent games. The ripples from the sunken page have vanished, and the canal is once again a perfect mirror of the star-dusted, misty sky. For a long moment, the only sound is the gentle knock of the oar against its wooden lock, a slow and steady rhythm that marks the passage of time. The air grows cooler, and you pull the simple cotton of your yukata a little closer. Sekien has not picked up his brush again. Instead, he sits with it, resting across his lap, his gaze turned inward, his head tilted as if listening to something you cannot yet hear. The corrected character on his scroll seems to gleam in the lantern light, a secret now shared between him and the night. Sight is a demanding sense, he says softly, his voice weaving into the quiet tapestry of the evening. It insists on form, on color, on boundaries. It convinces us that what we see is all there is. But the night has another language, a much older one. It is the language of sound. He raises a hand not to point, but to ask for your stillness. Let us put away our eyes for a moment. Let them rest. Let us instead open our ears. Listen past the sound of the water. Listen past the crickets in the reeds. There are other rhythms here, other songs being sung in the deep, dark quiet of the world. Every forgotten thing has a voice. We must only learn how to listen for it. You follow his guidance, letting your eyelids grow heavy. The visual world softens, blurring into shades of amber and black, and the soundscape of the night rises to greet you. You can hear the soft, wet sigh of the reeds as the boat passes. You can hear the distant, lonely call of a night heron, a single plaintive note that hangs in the air before dissolving into the mist. You can hear the almost inaudible creak of the boat's wooden frame as it flexes on the water, and then a new sound joins the chorus. It is faint at first, coming from directly beneath you, from the dark, unseen space under the floorboards of the boat. It is a dry, rhythmic clatter, clack, clack, clatter, clack, clack, clatter. It is a sound of frantic, joyful energy, a sound of something small running in circles in the dark. It is accompanied by a voice, or rather two voices, singing in a gravelly, out-of-tune harmony. Kararin, kororin, kan kororin. The song is spirited, but it is a song of complaint. Sekien chuckles, a low, warm sound in the cool night. Ah, he says, it seems we have passengers. Do not be alarmed, it is only the Bekazori. He explains that they are his old traveling sandals, a pair of humble zori woven from straw with simple wooden bases. He wore them for years on his journeys, walking dusty roads and mountain paths, until their straps frayed and their straw grew thin. One day, he simply replaced them, leaving the old pair forgotten under the deck of this very boat. A tool that has served for 100 years, or has been discarded with disrespect, can awaken, he says. These two have awakened not with anger, but with an opera of grievances. Their song, Kararin Kororin, is a lament. It means my eyes, they ache. They are complaining about the wooden thongs you see, the eyes of the sandal where the straps are threaded through. After so many miles, the wood has rubbed them raw. The clattering grows louder, more insistent. You can picture them now, two small animated straw sandals, each with two tiny legs and a single large eye chasing each other in the darkness beneath you. They are not menacing. They are like two grumpy old men reminiscing loudly about their aches and pains, their voices a chorus of good-natured complaint. They are celebrating their new life by grumbling about their old one. Their dance is a chaotic, joyful, shuffling protest against being forgotten. They run all night. Sekien continues his tone fond. They sing of the sharp stones on the Tokaido road, of the freezing mud in winter, of the weight of the master who wore them. They have a great many things to say. It is a reminder, I think, that even the most humble things have a history, a story of service. We walk on them, we wear them out, and we forget. But they remember every step. As he speaks, the clattering under the boat reaches a crescendo. There is a final energetic thump as one of the sandals in its chaotic dance kicks upward against the underside of the floorboards. The sound is no louder than a dropped stone, but it has an effect. A small folded piece of paper, which must have been lodged between two planks for years, is dislodged. It flutters up through a crack in the floor and lands silently on the deck, no bigger than your thumb resting just beside Sekien's foot. The singing and clattering immediately cease, as if the effort has exhausted them, or as if their work is done. Silence returns to the boat, a silence now filled with a new sense of wonder. Sekien does not move for a moment. He simply looks at the small, dusty piece of paper. Then as the boat continues its drift, a new sound reaches you from the shore. It is the opposite of the Bakazori's chaos. It is a sound so steady, so peaceful, it seems like a part of the river itself. Shoki, shoki, shoki. It is the sound of washing, the gentle rhythmic friction of small, hard things being swished in water. Sekien turns his head toward the sound, and you follow his gaze. On the canal bank, shrouded in mist, is a small, hunched figure. You cannot make out its face or its form. It is a creature of shadow and sound. It kneels by the water's edge holding a shallow basket, which it rhythmically dips and swirls in the canal. The Azuki-Arai Sekien whispers his voice full of respect, the bean washer, always working, always singing his quiet song. The sound is mesmerizing. Shoki, shoki, shoki. He is washing azuki beans, preparing them though for what, or for whom, no one knows. Some say he is a harbinger of good fortune. Others say he is a harmless, lonely spirit, forever caught in his simple meditative task. His sound is not a complaint. It is a mantra. It is the sound of purpose, of patience. It is the sound of clean water washing over simple things. Sekien quietly steers the boat closer to the bank, taking care not to disturb the creature. The shoki-shoki sound grows clearer, more soothing. The bean washer does not look up. He is entirely absorbed in his work. Sekien then leans down and picks up the small folded paper that the Bakazori had dislodged. It is old and brittle. He carefully unfolds it. The paper is blank, or so it seems. The ink has long since faded to little more than a faint ghostly stain. With the utmost care, he leans over the side of the boat and dips the corner of the paper into the clear, swirling water near where the Azuki-Arai is working. He does not touch the creature's basket, but uses the clean, energized water that flows from its task. You watch as the cool water is drawn up into the fibers of the old paper. It spreads slowly, darkening the parchment, and as it does, a miracle occurs. The faded, invisible ink begins to drink the water, and its color returns. Faint gray lines reappear, sharpening into elegant, confident brushstrokes. It is a corner of a map, a fragment of a poem, a piece of the story he thought he had lost. It is the missing corner of the very page that started this journey. Sekien lifts the wet paper, holding it carefully in the lantern light. He looks at the revealed text, then looks from the silent, hard-working Azuki-arai on the shore to the quiet darkness beneath the boat where the Bakazori now rest. He turns to you, his eyes reflecting the deep, quiet wisdom of the night. The most ordinary sounds, he says, his voice, barely a whisper. The clatter of old sandals, the washing speens, they are not just noises in the dark. They become our guides if only we learn how to truly listen. He looks down at his own feet, at the simple sandals he is wearing, and a warm, humorous smile touches his lips. I believe I must treat my own sandals with more respect from now on, he says. I have no desire for them to compose an epic poem about their master's shortcomings. The boat begins to drift away from the shore, leaving the bean washer to his endless, peaceful task. The night feels full now, not with spirits, but with stories, with connections with the gentle magic of paying attention. Feel that rhythm. Sekien invites you, his voice, slowing, becoming a lullaby itself. The memory of the clatter of wood and the gentle, steady trickling of water. Let your eyes rest now. Let a small smile form on your lips. There is no need to hold on to the day. All burdens, all worries can be washed away by the gentle current of the water. Just listen. The boat glides away from the forgotten house, leaving the two mischievous spirits to the quiet mist. The ripples from the sunken page have long since vanished, and the canal is once again a perfect dark mirror of the star-dusted sky. For a long while, the only sound is the gentle rhythmic knock of the oar against its wooden lock, a slow and steady heartbeat marking the passage of time. Your journey with Sekien continues in this comfortable silence. The initial quest for the lost page has softened into a state of patient observation. The clues you have gathered, the revealed character on the scroll, the fragment of a map kicked up by the dancing sandals, rest on the small table before him, pieces of a puzzle waiting for their final companion. The boat eventually bumps softly against the mossy wood of a small deserted pier. The sounds of the sleeping city are more present here, the distant bark of a dog, the faint, sorrowful song of a noodle seller's flute, weaving through the empty streets. Sekien secures the boat with a single practiced knot. He steps onto the pier, the wood groaning softly under his weight, and gestures for you to follow. He holds his scroll of drawings, tucked carefully into his obi belt, the collected spirits resting silently against him. He stands at the edge of the pier, looking not into the city, but back at the dark, placid water, as if waiting for the river itself to offer up its final secret: patience. He says, his voice a low murmur that seems to be a part of the night itself. It is the most difficult and most necessary virtue for one who wishes to understand the unseen world. They do not operate on our time. They move to the rhythm of moonlight, of forgetting and being remembered. We do not find them. They decide when they are ready to be found. As if summoned by his words, a new sound emerges from the deep shadows where the pier meets the land. It is not the dry tap of an umbrella or the grumpy clatter of sandals. It is the soft, almost inaudible pitter-patter of small bare feet on damp stone. From the swirling mist, a figure slowly takes form. It is a child, or what appears to be a child, wearing a simple pale kimono. On his head is a large woven kasa hat, tilted so low that it casts his entire face in shadow. You cannot see his eyes or his mouth. All you can see is his posture, timid, hesitant, and profoundly shy. In his small hands he carefully holds a simple red lacquer plate. He takes another tentative step forward, then another, until he is standing before Sekien. He does not speak. He simply bows his head deeply, the great hat dipping like a wilting flower, and holds out the plate as an offering. On the plate sits a single perfect block of white tofu. It is silken and pale, shimmering softly in the lantern light, and it quivers slightly in the boy's trembling hands. In the center of the tofu is a single dark drop of soy sauce, a perfect circle of savory ink on a canvas of white. This is the tofu kozo, the tofu boy, one of the most gentle and misunderstood spirits of the Twilight world. Sekien's face softens with a look of immense kindness. He does not question or show surprise. He simply returns the bow with a grace and respect that honors the small spirit's courage. He reminds me of a story Sekien says to you in a near whisper, even as he reaches out to accept the gift. A story they tell in the mountain villages to teach children the importance of courtesy, even to strangers who emerge from the mist. He pauses, his hands hovering over the plate, letting the story settle in the air between you. There was once a wealthy silk merchant. He begins a man whose heart was as hard as his gold coins. He was traveling a lonely mountain pass at dusk, his mind full of ledgers and profits, when a small boy in a large hat appeared before him, offering a plate of tofu just like this one. The merchant scoffed. "Get out of my way, strange child," he shouted. "I have no time for peasant food." He kicked the plate from the boy's hands, the tofu scattering in the dust, and continued on his way without a second thought. The next morning, the merchant awoke to a disaster. His entire stock of the finest silk rolls of brilliant crimson and deep indigo was covered in a strange, spreading mold. The silk was ruined, and with it his fortune. He had scorned a simple gift and was repaid with decay. A week later, Sekien continues his voice, still a soft hush. A poor wandering monk walked the same path. He had nothing but the robe on his back and a small wooden begging bowl. The tofu koso appeared before him, as well, offering his humble plate. The monk, seeing a small boy offering to share what little he might have, bowed deeply. "Thank you, little one," he said. "Your kindness is a feast." He accepted the tofu, ate a small piece with reverence, and in return he offered the boy a single grain of rice, from his bowl all he had to spare. The next morning, when the monk awoke, he found a single perfect gold coin at the bottom of his empty bowl. It was just enough to repair the leaking roof of his small, struggling temple. He had accepted a simple gift with grace and was repaid with abundance. Having finished the story, Sekien finally accepts the plate from the tofu kozo. The small yokai gives another deep, grateful bow, and then just as silently as he appeared, he recedes back into the mist and is gone. Sekien looks down at the plate. He carefully lifts the perfect wobbling block of tofu to place it on one of his own wrapping cloths. And as he does, he sees what was lying beneath it. It is paper. A single sheet folded neatly to fit the plate. It is his paper. It is the final lost page of his manuscript. He picks it up, a slow, wondrous smile spreading across his face. It is not wet from the river, nor torn from the wind. It has been cared for. He unfolds it, and the paper is pristine, the ink of his drawings and notes still sharp and clear. The page had not been on a chaotic journey. It had been on a gentle one, ending its adventure as a humble mat for a spirit's offering. Sekien holds the page in the lantern light, his expression one of deep satisfaction. He looks at the tofu, then back at the completed manuscript, and lets out a soft laugh. "What an honor," he says to you, his eyes twinkling. for my work to be chosen to serve such a noble and elegant dish. I can only hope my clumsy drawings did not spoil the taste of the tofu. He carefully tucks the final page into his scroll, the puzzle now complete. The journey is over. He looks out at the dark water, reflecting on the night's strange and gentle lessons. The page needed to travel, he muses. It needed to be humbled. It could not be the final page when it was still full of my own pride. It had to serve a purpose beyond my own ambition. It had to be a resting place for a simple act of kindness. Only then could it come home. He turns to you the completed scroll, now resting securely in his belt. And now he says, his voice dropping into a slow, soothing cadence, let us reflect on that simple gift. Imagine its taste, its texture, a block of cool, silken tofu. There is no complexity here, no sharp flavors, only a clean, quiet purity. It is a taste that calms the spirit and asks for nothing in return. He pauses, letting the thought settle. In the world of humans, we chase after bold flavors, after riches and recognition. But in the world of spirits, the simplest gifts often carry the deepest meaning. Let that quiet, simple peace fill your mind now. Let it be the final taste of the night as you drift toward your rest. Let it be a reminder that a kind heart is understood in any world, visible or invisible. Of course, here is the seamless continuation of the story, a full-length segment dedicated to the final encounters of the night, written in the established narrative style. With the final precious page of the manuscript now safely tucked into his scroll, a quiet sense of completion settles over the boat. The tofu kozo has vanished back into the mist that is its home, leaving behind only the lingering taste of simple purity and the gentle lesson of its humble gift. The quest is over. Sekien ties the boat to the pier post with a practiced silent knot. The first faint suggestion of dawn, a deep bruised purple rather than true light, begins to soften the hard black edges of the night. Our work on the river is done. Sekien says, his voice a soft counterpoint to the growing stillness. The stories have been gathered, the lost page returned. Now all that remains is the journey home. He looks toward the labyrinth of narrow streets and sleeping houses that make up the heart of Edo. But let us not take the main roads. They are for merchants and samurai in a hurry. The true soul of the city sleeps in its alleyways, its yokocho. Let us take a final walk through the quiet paths that run between dreams. He steps off the pier, his own simple sandals, making a soft, reassuring sound on the dark wood. You follow him into a narrow lane, leaving the open water of the canal behind. Here, the world closes in. The wooden walls of houses rise up on either side, their eaves nearly touching overhead, creating a tunnel of darkness. The air is different, thick with the smells of cooling cooking hearths, damp moss growing in the cracks between stones and the faint, clean scent of cedar wood. The single lantern Sekien carries casts long, dancing shadows that make the alley seem to breathe with a life of its own. You walk in a comfortable silence, your footsteps and his the only sound in this forgotten artery of the city. A lean black cat, its eyes glowing like two green embers, slips along the top of a wall and vanishes without a sound. From behind a paper screen, you hear the soft murmur of someone talking in their sleep, their words a meaningless, gentle river of sound. This is the city at its most vulnerable, its most honest. You turn a corner into an even narrower alley, this one no wider than your shoulders. The path is paved with smooth, uneven stones worn down by centuries of footsteps. The lantern light barely penetrates the deep shadows here. You walk on following the quiet confidence of Sekien's steps, and then you stop. It is not a conscious decision. Your body simply ceases to move forward. The air before you, which was just empty darkness a moment ago, has become solid. It is not a visible wall. There is no wood, no stone, no paper screen. There is nothing. Yet you cannot pass. It is like walking into a thick, invisible pane of glass, an immovable certainty that the path is closed. You push gently, but your hand meets a firm, unyielding resistance that has no substance, no texture. It is simply no. Sekien, who has stopped just beside you, does not seem surprised or frustrated. He stands for a moment, listening, his head tilted as if in polite inquiry. A slow smile touches his lips. Ah, he says, his voice a low, amused whisper. It seems the path itself wishes for a moment of privacy. We have met the Nurikabe. He rests a hand on the solidified air before him, patting it gently as one might pat the flank of a stubborn mule. An invisible wall, he explains, a spirit of boundaries. It does not appear out of malice. It is simply the spirit of a place that has grown tired of being trod upon. It is a guardian of quiet corners, a protector of forgotten spaces. It rises when it feels the world has become too loud, too hurried. He takes his long bamboo walking staff from his belt, its wood polished to a smooth dark sheen from years of use. You cannot push through it, he says, his eyes twinkling in the lantern light, and you cannot climb over it. It is as stubborn as a government official presented with a new idea. He does not brace himself or use force. Instead, he holds the staff lightly and lowers its tip to the ground. Then, with a gentle, deliberate motion, he taps the very bottom of the empty air before him, just above the stone paving. Tap, tap, tap. The sound is small, respectful. It is not a strike, but a polite knock. And with the third tap, the invisible wall dissolves. There is no sound, no flash of light. The feeling of resistance simply vanishes, melting away, like sugar in hot tea. The air is once again just air, and the path forward is clear. Sekien nods, satisfied. That is the secret. He explains, his voice once again a conspiratorial murmur. You must never confront it directly. That only makes it stronger. The strength of the Nurikabe is in its center, but its foundation, its connection to the earth, is its weakness. A little tap, a polite request at its base, is all that is needed. It is a useful lesson, I find, for dealing with both spirits of the road and stubborn ministers in silken robes. With the path now open, you continue your walk the alley, seeming to welcome you forward. The silence that returns is deeper now, more profound. But it does not last long. As you take your first few steps, a new sound begins. Karan koron, karan koron. It is the unmistakable sound of wooden geta sandals clacking on stone, and it is coming from directly behind you. You instinctively want to turn to see who is there, but Sekien places a calming hand on your shoulder. Do not be troubled, he whispers, his own pace remaining steady and unhurried. And do not look back. The footsteps match your pace perfectly. When you slow, they slow. When you speed up, they speed up. Karan koran. The sound echoes in the narrow claustrophobic space, seeming to come from everywhere at once. It is not an aggressive sound, but it is persistent. It is the sound of being followed. That is Beto-Beto-san Sekien explains, his voice, a low, reassuring hum. He is the spirit of footsteps, a harmless yokai, but a lonely one. He means no ill will. He simply hears people walking in the night and wishes to have a companion for a time. To run from him is to invite him to chase. To ignore him is to be discourteous. There is a simple etiquette for such encounters. After a few more steps, with the clacking sound still right at your heels, Sekien stops. He does not turn around. Instead, he calmly, gracefully steps to one side of the narrow alley, pressing himself against the cool wooden wall and leaving the path clear. He gestures for you to do the same. He then gives a slight, respectful bow to the empty space behind him. Beto-beto-san, he says, his voice, polite and clear. After you please. For a beat, there is only silence. Then the sound begins again. Karan koron. The invisible footsteps walk past you. You can feel a faint stir in the air as they move by a slight displacement of the mist. The sound continues down the alley, growing fainter and fainter until it is completely gone, swallowed by the night. The alley is quiet once more. The feeling of being followed has been replaced by a sense of peaceful solitude. You resume your walk the end of the alley, now in sight. The deep purple of the sky is giving way to a soft, pearly gray. Dawn is near. Sekien walks beside you, his scroll secure his expression, one of calm contemplation. The invisible world, he says, his voice, now carrying the weight of the night's final lesson. It teaches us the most important lessons for our own visible world. When we meet an obstacle, our first instinct is to use force. But the Nurikabe teaches us to find a wiser, gentler way. When we feel we are being followed, our first instinct is fear. But Beto-beto-san teaches us to respond with respect and courtesy. He pauses looking at you, his guide for this strange and wonderful night. We received a gift from the tofu kozo with grace. We overcame a barrier with wisdom. We yielded the path to a lonely traveler with politeness. Kindness and courtesy, he concludes, are the language that humans, gods, and ghosts all understand. It is the universal etiquette of the cosmos. The alley opens up into a wider street, and you can see the familiar shape of Sekien's home in the distance. The journey is over. Now he says, his voice slowing, becoming a final, soothing lullaby. Our path is clear. Feel your own footsteps on the ground, gentle and steady. There are no more obstacles. There is nothing following you. There's only the quiet, peaceful path leading you home, leading you toward a deep and tranquil rest. Just walk, and let the world of spirits fade away, leaving only the promise of sleep. The alleys of Edo give way to a broader, more familiar street, and the soft gray light of pre-dawn now illuminates the path. The air is cool and clean, washed by the passage of the night. A nearby temple bell rings out its single deep bronze note, a calm and steady announcement that the city is beginning to stir from its slumber. You have walked with Sekien through a world of sleeping streets and waking spirits, and now you arrive back at the quiet solitude of his home. He slides the wooden door open with a soft, familiar rumble and steps inside, gesturing for you to follow. The interior of his home is a world of paper wood and ink. Scrolls painted with fantastic beasts and serene landscapes hang on the walls. Stacks of books and unbound pages rest in neat piles. The air smells of old paper, of pine wood, and of the sharp, earthy scent of the ink he grinds himself each morning. A sense of profound peace pervades the space. It is a home built not just of wood and plaster, but of stories. With the careful, reverent movements of a priest handling a sacred text, Sekien approaches a low writing desk. He unrolls the manuscript one last time, its length stretching across the dark polished wood. He takes the final precious page, the one offered to him on a plate of tofu, and gently lays it in its rightful place. The scroll is now complete. The story has found its end. He stands back, admiring the work, not with pride, but with a deep, quiet satisfaction. He traces the journey of the night, with his finger hovering over the image of the dancing umbrella, the ink-licking lantern, the complaining sandals, and the gentle tofu boy. Each was a step on the path, a piece of the puzzle, a quiet guide in the dark. A story is a living thing, he says, his voice, a soft reflection in the quiet room. It is born from a single idea, but it grows and travels in ways the author can never predict. It seeks its own completion. Tonight we did not write the story. We simply followed it home. As he speaks, he points to a small framed print hanging on the wall. It is a simple woodblock image depicting a colossal catfish, a namazu lying in the mud beneath the islands of Japan. A handsome god, the mighty Kashima, pins the giant creature down with a great stone, but his gaze seems distracted, his grip slightly loose. The old legends say that all the chaos of the world comes from the stirring of a great beast, Sekien explains. Deep in the earth, the giant catfish, Namazu, sleeps. As long as the god Kashima holds him down with the Kanami-ishi, the foundation stone of the world, all is calm. But when the god's attention wanders even for a moment, the catfish thrashes its mighty tail. And when it does, the earth trembles, the seas roar, and the winds howl with a sudden fury. He turns from the print and looks toward the paper screens of his window, where the pre-dawn light is growing stronger. It seems, he says with a wry smile, that the god Kashima must be drowsy this morning. At that very moment, as if summoned by his words, the world outside changes. A low moan comes from the distance, the sound of a rising wind. The gentle quiet of the morning is shattered. The wind rushes through the streets, howling, rattling the wooden frame of the house. The paper screens on the windows begin to tremble violently. A sudden torrential rain begins to lash against them, the sound like 1,000 angry hands drumming against the fragile walls. The house groans. The storm has come out of nowhere, a freakish squall of impossible force. It is the thrashing tail of Namazu. Before Sekien can react, a powerful gust of wind rips one of the paper screens clean from its wooden frame. The storm invades the room. The wind tears through his sanctuary, a chaotic, swirling vortex. Loose papers are lifted from his desk, dancing in the air like frantic white birds. His brushes roll across the floor. The flame in his lantern sputters and dies, plunging the room into the gray, violent twilight of the storm. And the scroll, the completed scroll, the object of the entire night's patient journey, is caught in the gale. It lifts from the table, unrolling in the air, a long banner of ink and paper, telling its story to the raging wind. It is carried across the room, out through the broken screen, and into the lashing rain. You both rush to the window, just in time to see it tumble through the air and land with a soft, heart-wrenching splash in the overflowing waters of the canal just outside. For a moment, it floats a pale, vulnerable thing on the churning, dark water. Then it is pulled under, disappearing into the depths, gone. Sekien stands at the empty window, the wind and rain whipping at his face. The storm rages on, but in his eyes there is a terrible calm. He does not shout. He does not curse. His expression is one of deep, profound sorrow. The work of the night, the gifts of the spirits, the lessons of the path, all of it, washed away in an instant. All hope seems lost, swallowed by the chaotic, swirling water. He is about to turn away from the window to surrender to the loss when a new light appears. It is not the amber glow of a lantern, nor the harsh flash of lightning. It is a light coming from beneath the surface of the canal. A soft, gentle, luminous glow, the color of pale jade and mother of pearl. It pulses softly, a calm heartbeat in the heart of the storm. As the light grows stronger, the storm begins to subside. The howling of the wind softens to a mournful sigh. The lashing rain gentles into a soft vertical drizzle. The churning water of the canal grows still. The rage of Namazu has been soothed, and from the now calm water, a figure emerges. She rises slowly, gracefully. She has the body of a fish covered in shimmering, iridescent scales. She has long, dark hair that floats around her like seaweed. Her mouth is soft and curved, almost like the beak of a bird. And she has 3 slender, fin-like legs that trail in the water beneath her. This is Amabi, a mermaid of prophecy, a spirit of the deep ocean who appears only in times of great turmoil. A soft, benevolent light radiates from her entire being, pushing back the darkness and the gloom of the storm. In her hands she holds the scroll. It is not wet. It is not damaged. It is perfectly dry, the paper pristine, the ink sharp and clear as if it had never touched the water at all. She floats toward the edge of the canal, her ancient wise eyes fixing on Sekien. She holds out the scroll. The exchange is conducted in perfect silence, a sacred moment of trust between the artist and the spirit of the sea. Sekien leans out of the window, his hands trembling slightly, and takes the scroll from her. He bows his head, a gesture of the deepest gratitude and reverence. Amabi looks at him for a moment longer, a silent understanding passing between them. Then with a final gentle pulse of her otherworldly light, she sinks back beneath the surface of the water and is gone. The light fades. The storm is over. The canal is once again still and dark, reflecting the pale, quiet sky of the approaching dawn. Sekien stands for a long time, holding the rescued scroll, simply breathing. He looks from the precious object in his hands to the calm water, and then he lets out a long, slow sigh of relief. A small human laugh escapes him. "Thank you, goddess," he says to the empty canal. He turns to you, his face breaking into a weary, humorous smile. "I truly thought I would have to dive in there to fetch it. And with this old back of mine, I would probably become a new yokai to be added to the collection. The old painter with an aching back." He walks back to his desk and carefully lays the scroll down this time, weighing it down with his inkstone. He sits not as an artist ready to work, but as a man who has just witnessed a profound miracle. In the midst of chaos, he says, his voice now filled with a new, stronger conviction, there is always a guardian. In the midst of despair, there is always a prophecy of peace. That is the lesson of Amabi. He explains her legend to you. She rises from the sea to prophesy either years of abundant harvest or years of terrible plague. But she always offers a solution. She tells those who see her, "Draw a picture of me and show it to the people, and the drawing itself will become a ward against the coming hardship." He looks down at his own hands, the hands that hold the brush. She teaches us that art is not just for contemplation. In a quiet room, he says, his voice, full of a sudden, powerful clarity. It is a life raft. When the world is drowning in a storm of chaos, of fear, of uncertainty, a drawing, a story, a single hopeful brushstroke has the power to keep our souls from sinking, that he concludes is the true purpose of what we do. It is not to capture monsters. It is to create hope. It is to draw a picture of the light that appears even in the deepest, darkest water. He finally rolls up the scroll, his work for the night, and for this story truly complete. He ties it with a simple silk ribbon. The night's journey is over its lessons, learned its gifts received. Thank you for your companionship. On this long night, he says to you, a final warm farewell. Now go and find your rest, and may your dreams be filled not with storms, but with the gentle glowing light of a guardian rising from the water, to remind you that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope. There is always peace waiting to return. The sun is higher in the sky, now a warm and welcome presence after the long, mystical journey of the night. You are standing with Sekien on a small wooden bridge, looking back at the labyrinth of quiet, traditional lanes from which you have just emerged. His home, a sanctuary of paper and ink, is nestled peacefully among them. The rescued scroll, his Gazu Hyaki Yagyo, the illustrated night parade of 100 demons, is safe within its story, now complete, its final page restored by the gentle courtesy of the unseen world. A sense of profound peace hangs in the morning air, a feeling of a story having found its proper end. But as you stand there, a new set of sounds begins to drift from the other side of the bridge. It is the sound of a different city, a different time. Not the soft shuffle of sandals on dirt paths, but the sharp clatter of horse-drawn carriages on stone. Not the quiet call of a temple bell, but the distant metallic shriek of a steam whistle. It is the sound of the Meiji Restoration, the sound of an ancient city learning a new language of iron steam and speed. Sekien turns from the old world and gazes toward the new one. His expression is not one of sadness or resistance, but of an insatiable scholarly curiosity. The night's work is done, but the artist's eye is never at rest. The spirits of the night have returned to their shadows. He says, his voice a thoughtful murmur. They are born of stillness of moonlight, of the things we forget in the corners of our homes. But a new day brings new light, and with it new shadows, new fears, and therefore new spirits. He looks at you a gentle invitation. In his eyes, the world does not stop changing, and so the world of yokai does not stop growing. Shall we take one last walk, not to find what is lost, but to see what is being born? You follow him across the bridge, and with each step, the world transforms. The narrow winding lanes of old Edo give way to wider, straighter streets. The elegant curved roofs of traditional wooden houses are replaced by the severe flat facades of Western-style buildings made of dark red brick. The scent of wood smoke and river water is overpowered by the sharp tang of coal and the unfamiliar smell of baked bread from a new kind of bakery. Even the people are different. Here women in bright flowing kimono walk beside women in corseted dresses and bustles their parasols held at a fashionable tilt. Men in the formal robes of the samurai stride past men in stiff woolen suits, their top hats held firmly on their heads. It is a city of ghosts, but not the ones Sekien is used to. Here, the ghost of an entire era haunts the streets, walking beside the spirit of the one that is to come. Sekien seems less like a native of this world and more like a gentle anthropologist, observing it all with a calm, analytical eye. He seems particularly fascinated by the new stories people are beginning to tell, whispers passed in the new coffee houses and gas-lit parlors. The new legends they tell are filled with such haste. He says his brow furrowed, not in disapproval, but in thought. They speak of the teke teke, the ghost of a woman cut in half by a train who drags her screaming torso through the night on her elbows, a sound of pure metallic horror. They speak of the kuchisake onna, the slit-mouthed woman, a specter of sudden urban violence who confronts strangers on lonely streets. These stories are born of the sharp edge of a new kind of fear, the fear of the machine, the fear of the anonymous crowd. They are effective, yes. They are shocking, but they lack the quiet poetry of the strange, the gentle melancholy of a thing that has become a spirit simply by being forgotten for 100 years. These new ghosts are not born of time and neglect. They are born of iron and steel and a terrible, terrible speed. He stops guiding your attention upward. Here the sky is not empty. It is sliced into geometric patterns by a web of thin black wires, all strung from towering wooden poles that line the street. They are telegraph poles, a strange new forest of stark uniform trees. One of them, standing right beside you, is vibrating. It emits a low, constant, mournful hum, a single resonant note that seems to be the voice of the entire bustling city. Sekien places his hand on the rough creosote-soaked wood, closing his eyes as if listening to a heartbeat. Now this, he says with a soft, appreciative smile, is a ghost I can understand. I prefer this kind, the tsukumogami of the telegraph pole. It does not leap out to frighten you. It does not chase you with a blade. It only moans. He gestures for you to listen more closely to the low hum, and who can blame it? Can you imagine its life? It is a silent sentinel, forced to listen to the endless frantic chatter of an entire city. Every urgent business deal, every whispered lie, every declaration of love, every bitter complaint, every politician's empty promise, all of it flows through the heart of this poor spirit, a constant torrent of human noise, day and night, without a moment's rest. It is the city's confessor, and it is never allowed to speak. If I were this pole, I would be groaning too. It is the most honest sound in this entire loud new world. As he is speaking, a new sight captures his attention. A Japanese man, dressed in an ill-fitting but determinedly Western suit, in a fine bowler hat, is wobbling down the street on one of the newest, strangest inventions of all, a bicycle. It is a tall, gleaming machine with a large front wheel and a small back one, a metallic beast that seems to have a mind of its own. The man's face is a perfect portrait of modern anxiety. His knuckles are white as he grips the handlebars. His jaw is clenched in determination. His eyes are wide with a mixture of hope and sheer terror. He pedals furiously, then stops his legs flailing as he tries to find his balance. He swerves toward a pile of crates. He wobbles back toward a horse trough. The bicycle, this symbol of progress and speed, seems intent on reclaiming his dignity, one terrifying lurch at a time. Finally, with a small despairing cry, he loses the battle. The front wheel turns sharply, and the man topples over in a slow, comical heap of tangled limbs, woolen suit, and clattering metal. Sekien doesn't mock. He lets out a genuine, delighted laugh, a sound of pure joy at the sight of this timeless human struggle. He points with his bamboo staff, and there he exclaims, his eyes sparkling with amusement. We have just witnessed the birth of another new yokai, a magnificent specimen. Behold the Jitensha no Gasharakuro. He leans in as if sharing a great secret. It is not a terrifying giant skeleton assembled from the bones of the starved, come to punish the living. No, no. This is a much more tragic, more personal spirit. It is the ghost of a man forever trapped in the moment of learning to ride a bicycle. It is the spirit of lost balance and public embarrassment. It haunts the cobblestone streets where dignity has been spilled. In its mournful, rattling cry, the sound that chills the blood of all who attempt to master these strange machines. It is simply the squeak of a chain in desperate need of oil. The man on the ground picks himself up meticulously, dusting off his trousers and adjusting his bowler hat, casting a furious, betrayed glare at the bicycle as if it were a disloyal steed. He hesitates then. With a deep, resigned sigh, he gets back on, ready to wobble his way into the future once more. Sekien watches him go, his smile serene. He has found what he was looking for. The world is changing, but the nature of spirits, the nature of humanity remains the same. They are still born of our hopes, our fears, and our most wonderfully absurd struggles. The sight of the clumsy, determined man wobbling away on his bicycle leaves a gentle smile on Sekien's face. He watches until the man turns a corner and is gone. Another small human story absorbed into the fabric of the morning. The sun is higher now, warming the cobblestones, and the city of Tokyo is fully awake, a bustling, energetic entity that bears only a passing resemblance to the quiet, misty Edo of the night before. The journey that began in search of a lost page has transformed. It has become a pilgrimage not through sacred shrines, but through the evolving soul of an era. You have followed Sekien from the world of forgotten dreaming objects to this new world of humming machines and modern anxieties. The spirits of the night have told their tales. Sekien says his voice, a thoughtful murmur against the rising sounds of the city. And the spirits of the machine age are just beginning to learn their songs. He turns from the bustling street and gazes at a large, imposing building down the road. It is made of dark red brick with tall, arched windows and a severe, symmetrical facade that speaks a language of cold logic and foreign design. But there is one yokai left to meet, he continues, one that is more powerful than any dancing umbrella or invisible wall. It is not born of forgetting, nor of violence, nor of the struggle with new machines. It is born of order itself, of complexity. Let us go. Our last destination awaits. He leads you toward the grand building, the new municipal administration office. This is no longer a journey of gentle observation. This is a necessary errand. Sekien explains that he must register the deed to his own small piece of land under a new set of national regulations. To continue living in his world of old paper and ancient spirits, he must first pay tribute to the spirit of the new world. He must enter by its lair. As you approach, the building seems to grow looming over the street. Its sharp, straight lines are a stark contrast to the elegant curved roofs of the temples and houses you have passed. Its great glass windows are like 100 unblinking eyes staring down with dispassionate scrutiny. You pass through its heavy oak doors and step into another world entirely. The air inside is cool and still, and it carries a unique scent, the dry, brittle smell of old paper, the sharp, acidic tang of official ink, and the faint, ever-present aroma of dust. The sounds here are a strange and hypnotic symphony of bureaucracy. There is the constant, soft rustle of thousands of documents being shuffled, a sound like a vast, dry forest in a ceaseless wind. There is the low, monotonous murmur of clerks reciting regulations and asking for forms. And punctuating it all, There is the heavy rhythmic thud of official stamps striking paper, a sound like a judge's gavel falling again and again, sealing fates in red ink. This Sekien explains, with a sweep of his hand, is the domain of the shōji yokai, the paperwork spirit. You look around. There is no single creature to be seen. The yokai is the hall itself. It is the labyrinth of corridors made from towering filing cabinets. It is the precarious mountains of documents tied with string that threaten to collapse in a paper avalanche. Its bones are the endless shelves that groan under the weight of bound ledgers, disappearing into the gloomy heights of the ceiling. Its breath is the dust that dances in the strict, solemn columns of light falling from the high windows. And its priests, Sekien notes, are the clerks. They are not menacing figures. They sit behind long wooden counters, their shoulders hunched, their faces pale from the lack of sunlight. Their fingers are permanently stained with ink. They are the weary servants of this great invisible entity, tasked with feeding it, maintaining it, and interpreting its impossibly complex will. Sekien approaches a counter, his simple robes, a stark contrast to the severe environment. He holds his deed, the paper soft and fibrous, and presents it to a clerk who does not look up. This begins the final encounter of your journey, a battle not of swords or wits, but of pure, unadulterated patience. The first clerk glances at the paper, then points with a stained finger to the far end of the vast hall. Deed registration counter 17, he mutters, already reaching for the next document in his pile. Sekien gives a patient bow and begins the long walk across the marble floor. You follow the sound of your own footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. You arrive at counter 17 and wait in a silent queue of other citizens, each clutching their own sheaf of papers, their faces etched with a look of quiet, stoic resignation. Finally, you reach the front. Sekien presents his paper to a new clerk, this one with a magnificent drooping mustache. The clerk examines the paper, then shakes his head slowly. This requires Form B7, he says, his voice flat and tired. You can get it from the documents office, second floor east wing. And so the journey continues. You follow Sekien up a grand staircase, down a long corridor, and into another smaller room, just as cluttered with paper as the first. Here, after another wait, he is handed the correct form. He retreats to a small, cramped public desk to fill it out, the rustling of the hall, a constant oppressive whisper around him. He uses the ink, provided a thin, watery substance that is nothing like the rich, dark ink he grinds himself. With the new form complete, you descend back into the main hall, back to the queue for counter 17, back to the priest with the magnificent mustache. Sekien hands over the two documents. The clerk inspects them, holding them close to his spectacles. He hums thoughtfully. He adjusts his mustache. The seal is correct, he concedes. The form is correct. He dips a great wooden stamp into a pad of viscous red ink. He raises it high in the air, a judge about to pass sentence, and then he brings it down with a loud, satisfying final thud. He does this 3 more times, each stamp a blossom of red ink blooming on the page. He slides the paper back to Sekien. The task is complete. The paperwork spirit has been satisfied. The final paper of the journey has been found. It is not a missing piece of art, but an official blessing from the most powerful and feared yokai of the modern age. Sekien looks at the document in his hand, at the chaotic, overlapping red stamps. He sees not a bureaucratic mess, but a new kind of calligraphy, a new form of art. He gives a final respectful bow to the clerk and to the great spirit of the hall itself, and turns to leave. You step out of the grand dark building and back into the warmth and light of the morning sun. The air feels fresh and alive. The sounds of the city, the vendors, the carriages, the distant train sound vibrant and human, not oppressive. Sekien stands on the steps, holding the stamped document, and looks out over the city, a man who has traveled through the night of the past and has now emerged into the dawn of the future. He turns to you, his eyes filled with the calm, quiet wisdom of a completed circle. Every era he begins his voice, a soft but steady reflection, has its own fears, and therefore it has its own yokai. When our world was one of dark forests and lonely mountain passes, our fears gave us the wings of the tengu and the fangs of the oni. When we lived in quiet villages, our fear of disrespecting the dead gave us the rattling bones of the gashadokuro. He glances back at the imposing brick building, then at the telegraph pole humming in the distance. Now our forests are made of paper, and our deepest fear is of a misplaced document. We no longer fear the howl of the wolf from the shadows of the woods. We fear the mournful groan of the machine from the heart of the city. We fear the complexity we have built for ourselves. He holds up the officially stamped paper, a small triumphant flag in the morning light. But the yokai are not monsters, he says, and this is the final greatest lesson of the journey. They are mirrors. They are simply reflections of our own lives. They show us our anxieties. They show us our absurdities. And sometimes he adds a gentle smile returning to his face. They even show us our humor. They change as we change forever, holding up a mirror to who we are. He gives you a final respectful bow, a deep and heartfelt thank you for your silent, steadfast companionship through the long night and into the bright new day. Our journey together ends here. He says, his voice a final, soothing farewell. Go now and find your own rest. Let the complex papers of your day be filed away. Let the stamps fall silent in your mind. Let the rattling of machines and the groaning of wires fade into a gentle hum. Your mind is now a clean, empty scroll, ready for the simple, peaceful story of your own dreams. Rest now. The story is complete. And with that, the final official stamp falls silent, leaving you in the deep, quiet peace of a sleeping artist's home. The air is cool and still carrying only the faintest, almost imagined scent of drying ink and old paper. The only sound is the gentle rustle of the wind against the shōji screens, a soft whisper that has replaced the humming of wires and the rattling of wheels. The mischievous dance of a forgotten umbrella, the patient washing of the river spirit, the invisible wall that yielded to courtesy, and the frantic wobble of a new machine all have told their tales. The calm curiosity and gentle wit of Toriyama Sekien have shown you the spirits that walk beside us both in the misty alleys of the past and on the bustling streets of the future. Now the ink is dry, the scroll is complete, and there is only the quiet of the coming dawn. Let the silence of this paper-walled home cradle you and allow the memory of these strange and gentle spirits to fade, for they are only mirrors. And now the mirrors are still. Let your own reflection in them become a soft, peaceful dream of your own. Sleep well, night traveler. The parade of spirits is over. Rest is here.